Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of School to Startup. I'm Ankita Bhosle from University Partnership Team at Tracxn. For over a decade, Tracxn has powered global startup ecosystem as a leading private market intelligence platform, working closely with universities that foster innovation and entrepreneurship. School to Startup is one of our flagship initiatives spotlighting academic leaders who are shaping the future entrepreneurs. Today, we are delighted to welcome Dr. Niran Subramaniam, Associate Professor of Financial Management and System, Henley Business School, and we are excited to have you, Dr. Niranjan, on our show.
Yeah, absolutely. Ankita, thank you very much for having me. I'm really pleased and excited to be here.
To start off with our interview, the first question that we would love to know is how, if you could share a little bit about your professional journey, what led you to academia, and how has been your experience so far?
My experience so far has been fantastic. Straight out of university, graduating with a computer engineering degree, computer information engineering degree. I went into consulting, article with Anderson for a few years before going into managerial positions in various companies. So I've been in practice in the industry and commerce for 15 plus years before coming back into academia. So during that time, I qualified as a management accountant. So I have an accounting designation, as well as followed a master's in business administration in finance and e-business, which really was quite inspirational in the sense the e-business was just about starting at that time, when I graduated with the master's degree. So that has been the impetus for further experience, which was in financial management and information systems in various companies. And then that brought research opportunities. So that's when I began my journey into doing research as a research fellow for EDUCAUSE, which is based out of the United States. So I did my information systems management PhD at the University of Warwick, and this was several years ago, obviously, but it seems like it's all fresh now. But the motivation and inspiration has been there throughout for wanting to contribute back to society in terms of what I can give to academia. So with that rich vein of experience that I've had in both fields and the ability to combine both these disciplines to be able to give back to the community. I was at the University of Oxford as a lecturer in accounting information systems, where I had the opportunity to teach financial management and information technology for finance to the MBA graduates. So I was teaching masters in business administration. So there was the passion to really work with the future leaders. So this is where we are right now. We are shaping the leaders of tomorrow. So I've been on that journey for the past 15 years, shaping the leaders of tomorrow. So working with executives on MBA programs in particular. So at Henley Business School, I'm program director for the executive MBA program, which runs from South Africa, Malta, and the UK. This is where I'm really passionate about talking about entrepreneurship, innovation, as well as opportunity for startup entrepreneurs. I'm by no means a management guru, but obviously over the years have learned quite a bit myself, and have been able to do some research and teaching. So
That's a really interesting journey which you have come in last few decades, and I think from corporate to teaching, and now you're focusing on entrepreneurship. That's a great journey to have, and we would love to know more about any exciting projects that you're working on or any research initiatives that you're currently working on. You did mention that a lot of focus is on giving it back to the society. So, what kind of impact do you hope to see with these initiatives that you're working on?
Yeah, some of the initiatives that I have been working on previously, say about 10 years, was on performance measurement and management. So how to measure performance of organizations, more innovatively, rather than following the traditional ways of measuring performance. So, there's this management adage, what gets measured gets managed, and some people, like Henry Mintzberg included, would say that that's a bit of a folly, that it doesn't work all the time, but because there are immeasurables, there are things that we cannot measure. So I think we as researchers take it as a challenge to measure the immeasurable. So we try to get an idea of how closely we can measure something, how closely that we can measure culture, leadership, engagement. I mean, these are things that we cannot measure. So easily measure, easily quantify. So that's been a challenge with organizations that I've worked with. So a couple of projects that I've done, one at the African Development Bank in Ivory Coast. These are projects of my own that I had undertaken in the past, many years ago, and also a project at First Citizens Bank, looking at their performance measurement and management system and how to improve that by coming up with not only measures of performance that are suited to their organizational contexts, but also providing them with the blueprints in terms of how to map the data to their core database, because data is everything in organizations. So we've understood the data model underlying their database, and then looked at the entity relationship diagrams, looked at the data mapping to be able to come up with the kinds of measures that they must have, and how it is that data analytics can then be incorporated into that to extract those measures that closely relate to the performance criteria that they had set, which has been a huge success in everywhere we have done that. So that's one thing that I can point out as a great success in terms of a project that I've done, both using research and also the experience.
So that's really interesting, because we are one of the leading private market intelligence platform, and we very closely work with a lot of data. We do understand how important that is to have a performance metrics of companies, and that's what we also do here. So we do understand how important that is. My next question is, what are the kind of trends, since you work so closely with students and startup ecosystems, so what are the kind of trends you have been seeing here in the startup ecosystem that students should be paying attention to, and how is academia adapting to nurture this entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question, Ankita, because with my experience, knowledge and experience over the years, one thing that I've noticed very readily over the years is that people who fall in love with a problem are the ones who have been most successful. So if you're in a startup setting, you've got to have entrepreneurs or the brilliant minds who actually fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So they're not really thinking about solutions ahead of time. They're actually very passionate about the problems that they're working on. So this single-mindedness, that doggedness, working on the problems that they identify as problems and problems that they identify for the community, for the society, for companies at large, for the world. Those entrepreneurs have been extremely successful, and I've seen many of my students over the years who have been entrepreneurs who identified not the problem that they've researched on. Well, that is also true in some contexts. If you identify a gap in the market, then you can obviously, go on to fill that gap. But people who have been more successful have been the ones who have identified problems and fell in love with those problems, wanted to find solutions, but didn't bother about solutions prematurely because they had this determination and the goodness to work on the problems firsthand. So that's what I would suggest, because entrepreneurs are the ones that take on an idea and have this sort of motivation and inspiration, not only for themselves and for others, to try and solve those problems at hand. And I've seen more successes that way than otherwise.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a question, a sub-question here. So do you think that if a person is from a different culture or a different geography will have, since we are looking at solution-based entrepreneurship, so you think culture and which places they belong to would also, bring these ideas in place?
Very, very good question. Because I can speak to this quite intelligently because I've gone across cultures. I've been in, lived and worked in Canada. I've worked with companies in the United States and working in the UK now, and also working with my learners who are in Malta, South Africa. So going across these cultures, the problems, people might say, are the same, but they're not. Problems are different. So different countries, different societies, different communities, different contexts, different organizations, problems are different. They may look the same or similar, but they are different because they're different in the ways in which those societies are structured. If we go back to Anthony Giddens' structuration, which essentially talks about that, the societies are structured based on how the society operates, the norms and behaviors that shape. So, and the norms and behaviors certainly give rise to these set of problems which are not fundamentally different, but somewhat different. So the approach entrepreneurs take to solving those problems could end up being universal, and those companies would be more successful than others. But I've seen more localized solutions to problems which are local, which remained local. Let me give you an example. M-Pesa is a currency that came out of Kenya. Now, it was originally started out as being a problem in Kenya, so it was proposed as a solution to Kenyan farmers and shopkeepers to transact currency online. And it ended up being a very effective solution in Kenya first, and then spread out of Kenya to continental Africa and then to the world. And M-Pesa was the blueprint for the fintech in terms of the digital currency, right? So that's entrepreneurship that is mushrooming out of the localized areas based on the cultural, I guess, norms and problems that they have, and how best that they advanced to seek solutions, right? So certainly different cultures, different problems require different solutions. some of those solutions can end up being universal solutions, which may be transformational, but may not be. But the point is that there are serial entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs make it a great success. They take an idea, they're very paranoid with the problem that they have, not the solution, as I said before, and they go on to become successful.
Thanks, Dr. Niranjan, for answering that question. I was just a bit curious there because you did mention that a lot of focus on entrepreneurship is solution-based, so I just thought I should just ask that question in. And my next question is, how do you see the role of academia evolving in the startup and innovation space in the next few years?
Another excellent question. And I think that academia has a much bigger role to play. I'll tell you what, because there's a plethora of information. There's information overload, which we have seen from year 2000, right from Y2K, right from the birth of the internet. There's a lot of information, and there's a lot of misinformation as a result. There's lots and lots of confusion. There's lots of illusion, even with the advent of I wouldn't say evolution of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of misleading information. There's a lot of mistruths out there. So the role of academia, with that sense of integrity that academics have, we are almost the standard bearer community for truths. Some academics might say, what do we know? Half-truths. That's a philosophical view. Some of these are perceived as half-truths. How do we know the real truth? I don't want to get into that discussion because we may get into a spiritual discussion there. But frankly speaking, I think academia's role is to be that standard bearer for good information, for knowledge, for transmitting that knowledge, for communicating and sharing that knowledge, just like what we are doing now, and also making sure that there are set benchmarks and policies and procedures in place, whether it is in an academic environment or otherwise. This is where I think that we can contribute immensely to set some markers to say, okay, well, these are the boundaries within which communities might operate. And in the space of entrepreneurship and innovation, yes, I mean, creativity is an absolute cornerstone, absolute foundation for entrepreneurs innovating. But innovation is doing new things in new ways, right? So that's essentially what it is. And when our learners, our audience, when they're on a journey to innovate, they're not necessarily thinking about innovation as a problem. They're actually very passionate about what they're working on, and they're finding those new ways of solving problems. And, how many new ways of solving problems that we have seen in the past, thousands and thousands. So the foundation for that is laid by, academia, academics, industry, practitioners, because let's not forget, entrepreneurs are naturally motivated, but they need inspiration too. And part of that inspiration, in my view, comes from the faculty, people like myself. We need to be inspirational to future entrepreneurs and to motivate them, to have them focus on what it is that they're out to solve, right? So that's where we can help them. And on the other hand, the knowledge that we can impart based on what we have learned over the years and the way in which that we share can also help them innovate and proceed in their journey.
That's a really interesting answer, and you did, highlight how academia is kind of helping students navigate through these challenges that they might be facing while they're working on their projects. Uh, have you come across any student-led projects or startups that have turned into success stories? And how do today's entrepreneurship courses contribute to such outcomes?
Yeah, this is interesting. I've come across quite a few, but I would just mention one because your company background is from India, so I can relate to, and I think most people nowadays, with the advent of Starbucks chai tea, people can relate to the word chai. Now, it was interesting. I know that the concept of these boutique or the little kiosks from which chai is served across places, different locations. This was something that has been widespread nowadays. But when I was at the University of London, there was this one student who had the idea of setting up these stalls in university campuses, for students to enjoy a cup of chai. Now, that sort of setup, exactly the way in which that she had conceived at the time, wasn't there. And she was pursuing a master's in entrepreneurship. I wasn't anywhere near teaching her, but I was the director of postgraduate programs at the time. So she had come for advice, and we had reviewed her proposal and worked with her program director to try and see how she can take that idea to market. And eventually we had allowed her to pilot that idea on campus at the University of London. And subsequently that idea caught on with other university campuses. Now it's widespread that if you go to University of Oxford, Cambridge, everywhere, and I go to Oxford to my college, and there's a stall set up right in front of it. And so in some ways there are a number of naysayers. People would just immediately dismiss that idea as being done, or idea as being executed by some other corporate entity, just like Starbucks, for instance. Starbucks has been around, and many other coffee shops and tea shops have been around. But this simple idea of a tea stall and making it practical, but then offering a product that is considered to be a little bit more authentic than the commercially available chai teas, with the spices and all that. That is quite original. It is almost like sort of drinking a tea on a street stall in India. And it's really incredible that this sort of niche idea and how it caught on in the UK, right? So that's one. And the second thing, a recent one that I wouldn't want to name names here because it's a very recent one that I would mention, is that I've been talking to a potential learner who talked about this idea, about his idea of recycling used shoes and making it available for people who can't afford to purchase a new pair of shoes in places like continental Africa and other places, particularly if they're in a good condition. Now, every one of us would have thought of this idea, I'm sure. We would have thought that where is this is going to go? Am I going to just put it to charity? Well, that's the first thought that would come to mind. This gentleman actually saw an article which talked about the landfills being filled up with lots and lots of shoes in different countries. So all the used shoes ending up in the landfills because they're very difficult to recycle. He thought the idea of making the shoes recycled and making it available to people who are in need, people who are not able to pay a large sums of money for pairs of shoes. Now the idea caught on, and it is a big organization right now. And if he had told me about that 10 years ago, I would have said that yeah, but it seems like such a huge undertaking. How would you take that forward? So when we talk about startups, first of all, the idea is so important. Second of all, is this sort of, I would characterize it as monomaniacs. People, they've got a single idea. They've got single-minded attitude, their doggedness to pursue that idea, to see it to fruition, to see it in reality. That's what makes these entrepreneurs different. It may not be such an innovative idea in some ways. And what's so innovative about the chai tea stalls? There's not much that's very innovative about it. What's so innovative about the used shoes being able to be used by others in other countries? Well, there is that affordability issue that they are dealing with. But other than that, it's not anything hugely innovative. So you don't have to have innovation every single time. But I've seen simple ideas being executed to perfection in these ways.
Both the ideas were actually very interesting. I think from tea stall, I'm sure anyone walking out of a class wouldn't mind a cup of tea. And everyone has a pair of shoe which is not too good to use, but not too bad to throw away. So I think it was there in front of everyone, but there was one person who came in and who thought that it can be a startup and it can really be successful and can scale up.
Yes.
Another question which I have is, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who would listen to this episode. So what kind of advice would you offer to students or any budding entrepreneur who's just starting off here?
Right. Yeah, I think the first advice that I would give to any entrepreneur is really this one that I had already mentioned, which is fall in love with the problem and not be fazed by what the solution is going to be, right? So the preoccupation, if I can use that often used word, preoccupation has to be with the problem, because I think entrepreneurs would agree that they're very passionate about the problem that they're trying to solve. So they're very dogged, as I said, monomaniacs. So focus on the problem and not the solution. So that's my first advice. The second advice that I would offer is the breakthroughs really don't come through by accident. If somebody is saying that, I woke up one day, I thought of an idea, eureka moment, there I went and I created this organization. That's simple BS. I mean, it just doesn't work that way, right? So breakthroughs don't happen. It's rather iteration and innovation. So second advice that I would give to budding entrepreneurs is iterate and innovate. Be prepared to go through so many cycles of iteration and then innovate. Innovating is, finding new ways of solving the same problem that has existed for years, right? So new ways, and that new way might catch on. I mean, we've heard so many stories of that already. So that would be my second advice. And I'm thinking that the third might be, very much suited to artificial intelligence. The age in which that we are living is also the test and learn, right? So trials and learning. So how many learning cycles as human beings we've learned to, put to test something and see if it works. If it doesn't, go back to the same iteration, maybe try something different and see if it works. So testing and learning. So this learning algorithms in artificial intelligence do essentially the same thing. They go through a number of learning loops, and to eventually learn, right? So large language models, for example, the optimization models, for instance, learn through repetition, and through that repetitive learning come the patterns, right? So then people can make inferences. So even entrepreneurs are like that. Through a number of trials, they learn. You can't say that the learning is the same as it would have been when they've tried it 10 times. If you have tried it 100 times, the learning would have been more refined, would have been more different, because you've learned not to do so many things that you made errors on. You learn to do the things that you've done right. So that's what learning is all about, in very, very simple terms. So testing and learning, entrepreneurs shouldn't hesitate to do that, and they should just forge ahead with that with that mentality.
That's a really great advice, for any young entrepreneur. Our last question before we wrap it up is, if our audience wants to learn more about your work, your research, or any upcoming projects, so where should we find your work? Or you can mention any recent publications if you would like to highlight here.
Yeah, that's excellent way to finish off. I'm doing quite a bit of research in the area of the influence and impact of artificial intelligence in financial management systems, in particular the influence and impact of artificial intelligence in accounting, financial reporting, financial decision making. So financial area is my domain, but I'm really using information systems and technology as to how best it can address some of the problems that we've had all along. So if people wanted to find more of what I do, they can visit my LinkedIn profile, which is quite simply Niran Subramaniam. If they type the name, then my LinkedIn comes up, and I would encourage people to find my work there. One of the recent articles that I published in the Journal of Financial Transformation was on the transformative capabilities of artificial intelligence, and what artificial intelligence artifacts, components, and tools are available in order for us to transform the financial domain, some of which that I've talked about here. I'm also very much involved in the professional community work that I'm doing with the Association of Certified Practicing Accountants and Chartered Institute of Management Accountants on the accounting side. So I'm participating in a number of international dialogue series with them. So certainly people can find those resources on the internet. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for your response, Dr. Niranjan, and that brings us to the end of the episode. And we sincerely thank you for sharing your time and wisdom with us. And we thank all our lovely viewers and hope this episode has given them a new hope and inspiration to become a successful entrepreneur. Stay tuned for more such episodes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.